You're listening to Dropping Pins, a story-based learning series from the Okayest Hunter podcast, hosted by Derek Melkor, and aimed at helping you hone your whitetail hunting skills. You'll hear the aha moments when known and unknown proven whitetail killers started consistently putting mature bucks on the ground.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Dropping Pins podcast, brought to you by the Okayest Hunter podcast network. Eric has done a great job collabing with a million other people that I still need to meet and talk to. He's got a great group of just interesting, cool, way more intelligent, and way better at podcasting folks than Greg, Eric, and myself. He's got a great lineup of people who are now part of the network, covering just about every outdoor activity you would ever want to do. So go check out the Okayest Podcast Network. Tons of good stuff on there. Thanks for joining us back on here. It is currently a Sunday night. The Packers just got their butts absolutely handed to them in the playoffs. So I'm drinking away my sorrows tonight because we are out and the Eagles are in. It was not even a game. So I'm happy that I can change my mindset here. I've got a good buddy on the podcast tonight. You might recognize him. He's made the circuit. He's got the Run and Gun podcast, which is an awesome podcast itself. He hosts that, and part of Lone Wolf Whitetail Addictions crew, and just an all-around amazing guy, whether it's deer, elk, sheds. This is the guy. So tonight we got my good buddy Justin Synan on. Justin, welcome to the show. How you doing, big guy?
What's going on, big dog? Man, thanks so much for the wholesome. I'm humbled to be on here. This is great.
Oh, get out of town, man. You should, like, if you guys haven't done it, go do some social media stalking. Look at Justin's Instagram and the elk that he killed 2 years. I still tell people stories about that thing, dude. That is like the biggest elk I've ever seen. I didn't think they got that big.
Man, honestly, I still can't believe it. He's mounted up in the living room, and every morning I wake up and I'm like, damn. Like, man, I can't get over that thing. So,
is that mountain like touching the carpet, and then his antlers are touching me?
No, we're really lucky. We got the log cabin. So if you guys do go check out the Instagram, you'll see. I had to, dude. It was the only place I could put him. I hung him up on the top of the top railing of the little loft that we got. So had plenty of clearance. Awesome. But dude, it was honestly like the only place in the house that this thing would fit. I was kind of freaked out when I first got it. I was like, oh no, plan A didn't work out. So we went and like abandoned ship, and I did some woodworking and went to work, and we found a good spot for him. So
that's super cool, man. Well, anyone who, if you have not heard of or listened to any of the episodes of the Run and Gun podcast, I highly suggest that you check it out. With us being, doing podcasts, I don't now listen to a whole bunch of them, but the Run and Gun podcast is one that I definitely check in on and listen as much as I can. You've got great guests, and you're just a really good host, dude. So I really enjoy listening to yours. We did.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
You do a good job, and you can just tell that you're trying to do a really nice job and get as much information out of people as possible, and it's appreciated. And I think your following has showed that. I mean, you guys have grown really nicely. We had you on, I think before you started Run and Gun, we had you on the Okayest Hunter podcast.
Yes, sir.
And
yep, we did.
And we were chit-chatting, and I could just tell right off the bat, I was like, I like this guy. I like how he hunts. I think he and I are pretty like-minded, and we kind of struck up a little bit of a, technology-based friendship from there and share some shed hunting stories. But I just want you to know that I've already got one this season. So, I mean, make sure you catch up.
I know. Hey, look, you're always going to win, okay? Like, especially me living in Kentucky. But you wait, all right? I'm moving to Iowa, so your time's coming.
Why do you think I'm rubbing it in?
Sides.
I got to rub it in while I still got a shot here.
Oh, man. Yeah, I can't wait, though, buddy. Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. And we can definitely dive into some of that stuff at the toward the end of the show if you want. But, Justin, I'm going to start off with the same question I ask everybody at the beginning of the podcast. And you've got a pretty interesting background as far as like different places that you kind of grew up hunting. But the traditional question I ask is, can you explain to anyone who might be listening or watching just kind of what type of terrain you kind of came up hunting, what kind of stuff you hunt now that you're most comfortable with, public, private, just so as you get into some stories about this past season, people kind of have an idea of what kind of stuff you're in.
Yeah. So actually, I grew up hunting, bow hunting. I was about 15 in the, I would say like north central part of Maryland. So I was really lucky where I grew up at. We had a lot of ag country, and then we had a lot of kind of like rolling hills and bluffs a little bit. No mountains or anything like that, but it was a really good mix. And then a lot of like flat, really thick, kind of like stuff you'd see in Texas, almost just like pines and big like thick briar patches mixed in there. So really good like late season cover and bedding. And I kind of transferred from hunting farms and stuff like that to suburban hunting when I was in Maryland. And then now that was about 5 years ago, I moved out here to Kentucky. And it's a really similar terrain here. We have a lot of like just bluff country and mostly ag where I live at now. So I do a mixture of private and public land hunting. For me, I really don't care. It's like I like finding big deer and I love scouting. So I do my best to cover as much as I can on private land, and then I also scout public too. So you never know, man. Like I always try to say, like, leave no stone unturned, because every once in a while you can find a giant. And one of the easiest deer that I've ever killed in my life was on public land. So it's, you never know what you're getting into. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies that are overlooked by guys. So I always try to just be upfront with guys, and it's like private, public, wherever he's at, like that's where I'm going. So I'm really fortunate. I've made some good relationships here in Kentucky, got some good farms to hunt. But I only have like one farm that I actually like solely hunt, and I'm the only guy. So a lot of gun pressure. I got to deal with that. So it's like, just like anything else, man, when the guns go off here in Kentucky, it gets really tough. And I think our conversation tonight, we're going to dive into a little bit of how my season's gone this year, and just the trials and tribulations. And it was a roller coaster of a season, dude, to be honest with you. It was ton of fun. So
I've gotten a sneak peek at it just from some Instagram stuff and social media. So I've been able to follow you a little bit this season. I'm excited to hear more. But just a quick question or two here. So you moved to a brand new state, a little ways from home, knowing that you want to find big deer, and knowing you for the last few years, you've definitely got on some. I mean, I'm thinking of one in my mind that was like an absolute giant that you've gotten on. How has it been getting permission in a new state and kind of figuring it out? Did you enjoy the process? Was it harder than you thought? Was it easier than you thought? How did that all kind of shape up over the last few years?
yeah, I'm glad you asked that, man. To be honest, for me, I've really focused primarily on bow hunting, and I think that really helps a lot of guys being able to get permission just for bow hunting. Um, Here where I'm in Kentucky, like where I'm at in Kentucky, is kind of tricky because we have a lot of the like people that live in the major cities like Cincinnati and Louisville and all these areas. They want to come hunt in our county, right? We're like that's actually how I picked our area, was the amount of Boone and Crockett entries we had in our area. I'm not afraid to share this information, but it's a little pocket. There's 3 or 4 counties that have some of the highest entries of Boone and Crockett numbers. So I thought, let me pick the best schooling, and that's how we picked this area. And I've just gotten really lucky, man. I think I'm a very good people person. Like, I'm good at reading people, and I'm not afraid to knock on doors. And I think me living in Maryland, that really helped a lot, because I hunted so much suburban and just got over the fear of failure, I guess, and people saying no. So I think a lot of people picked up that I love bow hunting, and I was into it. And I've had some people help me get permission just by talking to them. And then I've also met some other friends from going to church. I've had a couple good farms just from doing that. And yeah, I've knocked on doors, and then I just enjoy hunting the public too. There's tons and tons of it around here. So at first it's like kind of scary, but I think, like, as I touched on earlier, if with me moving to Iowa, it's like I'll probably primarily focus on public, in the beginning stages. and then I'll probably just door knock, and I'll make sure. My rule of thumb is like get 10 properties on a piece of paper, e-scout them, and then go knock on 10 doors. And rule of thumb, you're going to get, one, I would say, out of 10 generally. Like that's a good rule of thumb. You never know. Sometimes you can get a couple farms real quick. It just depends on luck of the draw. And, it is tough out here because everybody hunts. So it's one of those things
It was a good point you made that, like, I think the same as here in Wisconsin is like there's such a huge predominance of gun hunters that like getting permission, if you say just to hunt, I think you're going to get so many more no's, where if you're, specialized, hey, just for the archery season, or I'm only bow hunting, I think that's something that can help you get in on properties for sure. Because Kentucky, Wisconsin, Michigan, just such a huge amount of firearm hunters that every property feels like it's occupied, or you got relatives, friends who are hunting it. So I think you really could open more doors if you stuck to the archery, or just kind of announce that on your knock.
Yep, it is. It's a good way. I think a lot more people that aren't hunters, that are like, like let's say it's an old lady. I think people have more respect for bow hunters, not to throw shame on gun hunters, because I'm a gun hunter too, but I think when they hear that, they're a little bit more welcome to it, that you're not going to shoot their dog or their horse or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, obviously, and I've heard it all, man, honestly. So, I think it just lets a little bit of their guard down a little bit, and they're like, okay, well, this guy obviously isn't, going to come out here and just sling arrows everywhere. I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, people have all sorts of ideas about what's going on in the woods, and I think there's good reason for it. You do hear stories of this and that, so getting permission can be hard just because of people's encounters with others, or may not take such good care or be so careful. But let's dive a little bit into how that might relate to this past season. Justin is a guy who, obviously you can see behind him, has killed a number of really, really good deer. And even since moving to Kentucky, you've gotten it done, I think, every year you were there. But this season seemed to be a little bit different than years past for you. I would love to hear a little bit about, how the season started out, some of the things that you went through, and ultimately how your season ended up.
Yeah. How much time you got, buddy? Hold on here. No. So, man, I have been super blessed since I've been in Kentucky. Last year, I did not kill a buck. I could have, though. I was really lucky. I had some great hunts where I 100%, like I drew back on some mature bucks. I did wound a really big one in Indiana. That was heartbreaking. And it just didn't come together after the rut. So I tried. I played cat and mouse with one buck that I actually chased this year, which we'll get into. But yeah, man, I had a ton of fun last season. We literally just played ping and pong, and he just had my card. And if I'm being honest with you, I enjoyed it even more than just like coming out of the gate and killing him on the first go. He taught me a lot, and I definitely changed a little bit of my tactics this year because of chasing him. So hats off to him.
And that's one that you chased again this year?
Yeah, and he was even bigger this year, so I was even more stoked. He was just an old, like, brute of an 8-pointer last year, and this year he turned into a really nice 9-point. Still never really like a high scoring deer. I'd say he was maybe like a 140 class 8 last year, and this year he's probably like 145, maybe 148. But
that'll work for me, brother.
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely. No, he really did like throw on some good time length this year. And he looked like a mega from the side, man. I had a picture of him in velvet, and you'd think he was a booner if you've seen it. I'm telling you. So yeah, he was really, really smart deer too. I never got to watch him one time in the field. So I started off glassing a lot this year, which was really cool. We got partnered with Vortex on the whitetail addiction side of things, and I was really fortunate to get some really quality glass, and I got to spend a lot of time in the summer just behind it, looking in some of these fields. So I had 2 bucks that, they were good deer. Okay. They were good deer, and I would be stupid to not go after them. But so I spent all the whole couple months, like chasing them and just watching them in the field almost every time I go to look in the field, they were there. And I'm like, all right. So
were these
I'm
deer,
gathering
were
up.
these, sorry, were
Go ahead.
these guys showing up on a property that you had permission to hunt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or were
So
they
this
just
was
close?
no, this was they were coming to a bean field on a lease property that I had. I have a small lease around here. And I wanted to do that this year just because, like, you know, I had the same lease the year prior, but I wanted to get a little lease. And I've always got a couple guys that are, you know, like kind of family friends, and they've offered me money to come out and hunt. And I'm like, well, I'd really appreciate it if maybe we can get a lease instead of you guys shooting all my young bucks at the house, you know. Not trying to be rude, just saying I do a lot of effort at the house and I do a lot of effort to grow these deer, and I can't bring myself to tell you not to shoot a nice young buck that I'm trying to grow. So like,
I got you.
if you guys appreciate it, you know, so, you know, any tips out there for any guys going through the same thing? Like, I love hunting with other people, and I wasn't trying to be, you know, a dick about it, but hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So,
Hey, you made arrangements to make the situation good. That was
yeah,
nice of you.
Right. So, and we've had a blast. They've killed some good deer and everybody's happy. But yeah, man. So this year it was in beans. Last year it was in corn, and it's just perfect the way it lays out. There's a little hill, so I can get up there in glass. And you know, we're 2 days before season. I'm getting them coming out of this one, like pretty much like the north end of the property, and I've already got a tree picked out. Done deal. I'm like, right, like I'm gonna kill one of these on opening day probably. So I go around, and earlier in the season I saw what I thought was like a 160 that crossed in front of my truck that's like a mile away from there, right? And I saw him when I was leaving the farm one night. He hops out, and I'm like, oh my God, like full freak out mode, this giant 10, like kickers, trash. I'm like, you know, trying not to run off the road. And I looked on Onyx. Well, the lady that I'm leasing from owns this 20 acres that's right there. And I was like, oh my God, that's where he went into. So I go over, I talk to her, super nice old lady, didn't even charge me anything extra to hunt this 20 acres. She's like, honey, I'm telling you, there ain't been nobody has hunted that spot in 13 years. And I'm like, oh, all right, cool. Well, this is great.
Oh man, and
Yeah.
Kentucky's
Dude.
your archery season comes in pretty damn early.
Yeah, first Saturday of the month. So
when you see those bucks hitting a bean field, that you can feel pretty good they're going to stay on that routine, right?
Oh yeah. They were, I mean, dude, they were like a done deal. So I left them be, and then I go and so I picked up that property. Well, I go and I'm like, let me go check these cameras. And I had like cameras in there for probably 6 weeks. No sign of them. I actually did have the buck that I killed. He was over there, right? And he was super consistent. And I was like, he just wasn't quite like what I was looking for to, you know, punch my tag on opening day. So I let him chill. I go in there, man, and there's this, I made a scrape on the backside of this, the way it lays out, it's like a big ridge. And dude, this buck, this giant that I said, what I thought was like a 160, he's hitting this scrape midday, like twice in that week. And it's a non-cell cam. So I didn't know about this at all. Right. So I'm like, well, he hit it Tuesday, he hit it Thursday, and opening day Saturday. Like, let's freaking go. Like this thing. Yeah. Right. So, dude, I threw an all day sit at this deer. I got in there at 8:30 in the morning, and I was like, I think I'm going to kill him in the afternoon. Like the wind was perfect. I got in there like bulletproof, and I'm on pins and needles. It's the first hunt of the year. And I'm like, it's this badass velvet buck with trash and kickers. And like, I'm like, this is awesome. This is going to go down. Like I felt super confident.
So you must have thought that he was bedding pretty close to there since he's hitting this scrape.
Yeah, it's,
you know,
dude,
what kind of
scrape was right outside of bedding, like connected to
it. What kind of bedding is he in? Like, is it just like a ridge? Is it like thick timber? Or is it a patch of
It's
TRP?
basically
What kind of stuff is he in?
Yeah, it's just like rolling hills in these hardwoods, right? But he's right on the right on the tip of this. It's like imagine there's like a little section of pines that's on this knob. And then it's all big, like white oaks and red oaks in there. And he's right on the fringe of it. So to me, like immediately I walked in there, I'm like, here's the bedding. I've already kicked deer out of it. Like there's a creek right down below. I figured he was bedded right on the opposite side of this ridge. And here I come, like bulletproof access from the top. And I skirted all the way around to get into where I was. And I was like, man, like I kind of picked a crappy tree, like when I got in there to hunt it, I kind of second guessed the tree that I originally picked out, and I picked this other one, and it would have worked out. Like I was overlooking it. I had like a 30-yard shot to that scrape, and I was like, all right, this is good. Well, I'm sitting there, it is dead as crap, man. Like it gets to like 11 o'clock, a doe comes through, and then another doe comes through, and of course, like they work right behind me. And since I'm on this ridge, like, I mean, this doe is like parallel to me, and I'm like, this is not good. And I'm like, if he rolls through this like same trail, like, man, I got to bust him like quick. So I'm watching them. They feed by. They didn't blow at me, which I was really thankful for. So they got by. It gets to like 4 o'clock, I think. And, still hadn't seen anything since then. So super, super boring sit, right? Early season. It doesn't get dark till what, like 8:30, and I'm like, this is a 12-hour sit in 80-degree weather. Yeah, it sucked. Yeah, it sucked ass. So I'm filming a freaking squirrel, right? Okay, you know where this is going. So I'm filming a squirrel because I'm just bored out of my gourd, dude. Like there's nothing for me to do, and I'm getting some cool squirrel footage, trying to get the B-roll. Well, dude, no sooner the squirrels like bark and go and like split up, and I'm like, oh. Didn't think anything of it. Move my camera arm around. It's the freaking 8-pointer that I killed. Like it's the one that I killed this year. But he's in full velvet at 10 yards, like, and wheels out of there. And all I seen was a giant body, velvet rack, and he looked good, and I'm like, wonderful. This is
busted
great.
It.
Yeah. So I didn't end up seeing the buck. That's the end of that story. But
what time was that? What time did that buck end up coming
like
through? That
4:30, 4:30, and I had him
still
hitting that
really
straight.
early.
Yeah, but the weird thing is, this deer was always a homebody. Like that 8 hung out with another buck, but he never liked to hang around. Like I picked that up about him. So we didn't have many more encounters. Like I think after he peeled out of velvet, he just went to like he was definitely not too far from me, but he relocated. I never really got him on camera, and it was really tough, dude, because I'm hunting these 20 acres, but the way it laid out, I really only could hunt maybe like 10 of it. So it's just a pasture pretty much, and then like a little bit into the woods. But it had a nice little pond there in this bottom, and that was really what helped me throughout the season was a good water source for these deer, and I'd have a good scrape that I monitored on there. And I even threw bait out. I threw out corn because it is legal here. I don't like to hunt over bait, but I will use it to try to find and locate a deer, especially a deer of that caliber and I've only got 20 acres to hunt him on. I'm like, I got to see if he's even alive or what's around. So
there's no argument that if you're trying to get a deer, in front of your camera to get a photo of it, having some sort of bait in front of your camera is the best way. Otherwise you're going to, you're just throwing a dart at it and going, oh, I hope he walks down this trail, or I hope he hits this mock scrape. If you can throw bait to locate a deer, there's nothing that's going to help you more than doing that.
And well, the reason behind it too is I knew all the neighbors around us. I know I'm not a very well connected dude here, but my friends are, and I know from my friends how many other guys are hunting this woodblock. So I'm like, all right, I got to do something to pull him, like whether I like it or not. But my MO with it is I really try to just use it for, like scouting purposes. I don't like hunting over top of it or anything like that. But it just drives me nuts, man. I wish like it was a level playing field and we didn't have to do it. I think it would be a lot better for the deer. It'd be a lot better hunting. A lot more deer would live. But that's just my 2 cents. Enough about that. So, we transferred on with the season. I did end up getting an absolute mega on camera, probably like a upper 160s class, really thick deer. So then all my thought process goes into him. And meanwhile, we're letting this go. The 2 deer that I had in velvet, in the bean field, well, let's just say time had passed and they started doing different things. So I shot myself in the foot there. That was, a bird in the hand, pretty much the way I saw it. So, we get into like October timeframe. I started putting up mock scrapes everywhere. That was really the one thing that I really enjoyed this year that I did a lot more of was rope scrapes and just really trying to be strategic about where I was putting them so I could hunt them and use them for inventory. And that helped a lot, man. It was really like kind of a light switch event around mid-October to the third week in October. All these bucks just started hitting. All the bucks that I'd have over on that 20-acre piece started coming over and hitting the farm where I was at, like about a mile away, like I said.
I just have a question or two about your rope scrapes there. I've not used rope ever. So are you buying one of the kits? Are you using your own rope? Are you applying any scent to it? What is your kind of process for that?
So I'm using a thick rope. I got some from my good friend Dalton at Rack Daddy Minerals. So he's got these rope kits that he's selling that he pre-soaks them. But in my honest opinion, you can do it with a regular rope. You don't have to. I think the most important factor of it is to put it out there in the summertime and let the deer get used to it. Because it went from nothing but does that hit that scrape from September to that later part in October. It was nothing but does that would hit it. And they would hit it consistent, man. Like every night, every day, like they'd walk by and they like to play with it. So I think that's really the biggest factor in it is like putting it right at head height so it smacks them. And they almost just like to just play with it. Even if they don't hit the rope, they'll come up and like, full sneak it out to it, you know what I mean? And just smell what's like downwind of it. So it serves a purpose. Even if you don't get them to hit it, they're checking it out and they're giving you a good shot. You know what I mean?
And your mock scrapes that you're setting up, and I'm assuming you're running camera over that for some inventory. Are you doing mostly field edge, or are you putting any back into the woods too?
Both field edge, and then I try to cut off like really good primary trails on like the lower third or the upper third of a ridge. I'll put some on those kind of areas in the hardwoods, but more or less like the rope scrapes were kind of like a permanent thing on field edges.
Gotcha.
For one, because some of the farms that I have, I've only got the field, so it's kind of like I'm handcuffed. So it gives the deer something good to come up and preoccupy itself with while I can draw back and put an arrow in them. Hopefully, that's the main goal behind it. But I like
that plan.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a lot of fun, man. It's like a little science project every year,
Hell yeah.
But as far as scent goes, I was using a little mixture. I used some from Buck Fever Synthetics, and I used a little bit of stuff from Dalton. He's got a really good. It's pretty much the same thing, I would say. It's like got a little bit of vanilla scent to it, and the deer just like to check it out. So I don't know. I mean, other than that, that's pretty much what I've been doing. And then once they hit it enough, I mean, I don't touch it. It's like
they just take it over and leave their own scent on it.
Yep. And then like towards like the mid part of the rut or whatever, I dump some doe estrus in the dirt. And that's really what I started doing instead. And had a lot of, I passed a couple great deer on the scrapes. If you keep up with like any of my Instagram stories and stuff like that, I try to, post those up on there and like, keep it relative whenever I do decide to let one go. But I don't know. This year it was a little bit different with like, I kept getting the quality deer, but like just kind of like that borderline, you know what I mean? And like I had some encounters like late October and early November with good deer that I was like, like got you really excited. And then you're like, man, like, I don't know. That's the one thing that I hate about having one buck tag, because if I had 2 buck tags, man, like I wouldn't have even hesitated. But so such is life, of a one tag hunter. If you're out there, you know what I mean. But
it feels good to see those deer though. I mean, even if it doesn't end up being the one that you want to shoot, just being in bucks and on bucks, having those opportunities at least is giving you the confidence that, hey, I'm making the right moves. It's just a matter of time till that one that I'm looking for walks in. So it kind of gives you that confidence, but sometimes it can be a little bit of false hope too, because you're like, shit, I should not have passed that deer.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, it does. It really weighs on you too, like especially a week after and you're getting your ass kicked. But so earlier in like late October, I'm skipping this part, I had a really nice 8, like probably 140-inch 8, And I was like pretty stoked about him. I mean, he looked really good, and I had him on camera a couple years prior, so I knew he was old. He comes out, and man, like perfect, like textbook, comes out like 10 minutes before dark. I look over, and he's missing the biggest. He's probably had like a 12-inch T2, completely busted off. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, you know? And I'm like, and I'm thinking about that other really big one that I had at the time, right? That I was talking about in the beginning. So I'm like, I'm going to pass him. I'm going to, you know, whatever. Like, I feel confident if I really want to get back in here on him, I probably could. So I let him go. And then that was like October 20th. And then I passed another like nice 8, maybe like 120s, like November 5th. That's always been my favorite day in the woods ever. November 5th. I've killed both of these bucks behind me on November 5th. A couple other good ones too. It's just my time of the year, man. I don't know. Like somebody just comes out and throws a horseshoe at me that day or something. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to happen.
I think I killed my bull buck on November 5th this last year.
It's a great day, you know. Remember,
I
the
really
5th of November.
I really like it now.
Yeah. You got to, man. It's a good day. So, you know, we go to put our house up for sale, and I talk to the realtor. Well, here's how small town this place is. So our realtor comes up, knows I'm a big hunter, knows me. And she's like, oh, one of my friends killed a really good deer. And I'm like, oh, really? Cool. Like, what, you know, like, do you mind showing me? Like, oh yeah, sure. Dude, busts out her phone. It's just a magnum that I've been trying to kill. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, really? Like, and she felt like, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. You know, I'm like, no, like, I mean, I'd much rather you like, you know, here I am literally that day, dude. I went deep to try to scout and like do some different shit to find him. And I just couldn't find like, you know, the sign I was looking for. No wonder a deer's dead. So,
man.
Yeah. So there goes number 1, right? So there's really number 2, I guess, because I would have shot that 8. So, but he busted. Anyway, moving forward. So it's now, you know, November. I think it's like November 9th was our opening day of rifle here, right? So November 6th, I go out, and you know, I wasn't getting any of these deer on camera. You'll really like this, I promise. So I've got cell cams on this farm, right? And dude, these deer know where these cell cams are for sure. I did not get I wasn't getting anything on camera, hardly at all. There was like a mature buck, right? Just like the one that I had let go. He was pretty much the only one. I go and walk through this bedding area, kick up one of the deer that I had, one of the big 9s that I had in the bean field. Like he was one of the deer that I could have killed on opening day. And I'm like, bingo, like game on, buddy. Like you don't know what's just about to unfold. So he runs out of the bedding area with a hot doe and just looks at me at like 50 yards. And I don't have my bow. And I'm like, whatever. Like it's really not how I wanted to kill him anyway. And so we play cat and mouse for the next 2 days. We're just going back and forth. Like I had him at 50 yards the one day, I guess like Thursday. So I'm off this whole week. It's like my time to kill, right? And also spent another week in Missouri. That was kind of a upsetting chain of events, but I've spent 5 days in Missouri and didn't really come across much there either. So it was just like all this time I've been hunting my ass off, like from late October into November. And I decided to like take the gloves off, and I see him down in this bedding area, just dogging this doe. And I'm like, all right, tomorrow, like I'm getting down in there. So I set up in the morning. I played it a little bit conservative and like sat up, excuse me. Oh man, I got indigestion. I sat up on top of this ridge pretty much. And a lot of times in the morning, they'll roll around this ridge to like check this doe bedding area. But he didn't do it that morning. He just stayed down in his bedding area pretty much. So in this other bedding area that's connected to that. So I dive down into there. I'm in the thick cedars. Like, I mean, it's like textbook where you'd want to go find sheds. Right. And, I set up in there, didn't see anything, gets to like last light. And I see him coming through this one main trail, and I grunted at him, and he immediately stops, turns, comes right at me on a dime. He's walking in, coming in, like makes it 20 yards, makes it 30 yards. And he just pins up, and he's 30 yards away from me. and I can't shoot him. He's facing me. He's like in a way too many branches. It was like thick. And I just needed him to take 2 steps to his like right pretty much. And I would have had him in a clearing. He didn't hear anything behind me. He didn't see anything. And he just turns around and walks out of my life. The next morning is opening day of rifle season. And dude, my buddy sends me a Snapchat at 8 in. He's standing over top of him dead. So there he goes. He's dead. Great. Cool.
So that's like number 3.
Yeah.
Check it off the list.
Mm-hmm.
And you had encounters with him. You hunted him down. You hit some doe bedding areas trying to hunt him. And then you almost had him.
Yeah. Like if I'd have had like one more day, I would have just moved a little bit farther. And I don't know. It is what it is. You know, it's here or there, but it didn't happen.
So
He's dead,
where's your mental state at this point? Like, so you get
it's at an all-time freaking low. Like, it literally felt like you could have just came up and punched me in the gut, man. I mean, it hurt more than, I don't know. I don't think I've been that low in a long time in the whitetail woods. It was a fragile state, right? So it gets better. There's 2 other shooters that have shown up since then that are on that farm that are bigger than him. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, this is cool. I still got them. I haven't, I've like snapped myself out of it. I went and moved from where I was set up to kill him. I was like, all right, abandon ship. I'm going to go to the other end of the farm. I go there. It gets to like, and I'm hunting all day because I'm like, I always have said like opening day of rifle is one of those days that you should hunt all day, in my opinion. Like it really is. The deer just move, especially if you're in a rifle dense area. Like, I mean, I think you should get in those big drainages and just hunker down and sit all freaking day because it's one of those magical days. Didn't see hardly anything. I had a couple of little bucks come through, a couple of does. I think I saw like 17 or 18 deer that day. It was great, but it gets like an hour before dark. Same buddy sends me another Snapchat. The other big 9 that I wanted to kill, he's standing over top of him. He's dead. So there's 2 of the shooters on this farm. They're both gone. I get another Snapchat later in the evening. The other one that I was after, he got killed too. So all of my hit list bucks are dead. Like, they're all dead. It's great. Now I'm like, cool. This has been a great opening day of rifle season. And yeah, man. Yeah, it was like really like, whoa, like, did that actually happen? Yeah. And then of course, like my friends were like, oh, well, how do you know? I'm like, dude, like, I'm like a scientist. Like, I know what deer are around. I know what they look like, like it's.
He had a freckle on his left butt cheek. That's right.
Yeah, dude. It was rough.
Oh, I know. I speak your language. I know what you're talking about.
So, I'm in a deer pression. My wife's like, dude, just go kill a deer. Like, she's telling me to keep grinding. Well, I keep grinding all the way through. I go through rifle season. I didn't really have any other encounters. I came close. I had another close encounter with the one of the 8-pointers I let walk, like the good one that was at the 120s. And boy, I'm telling you right now, if he would have came in, I would have smoked his ass that morning. Like, there was not a, like, I don't care what he scored. He was going down. So my mindset shifted completely to like, let's just kill a mature deer. Right. And, forget trying to kill some giant. Like, I've had enough. I'm just ready to just kill anything that's like a 4-year-old or better. Like, that's it.
You got to let out some pent up aggression there.
Oh yeah. There was much of it. So I'm trying all this stuff, man. I'm like scouting other farms. I go over and I have some more bucks showing up on the spot where that buck had the broken tine. That's another farm like 20 minutes away. So I go over there, check some cameras that I had sitting. Had some great bucks showing up daylight, like 2 days before I checked the camera. I'm like, sick. Go in there to hunt. Here comes a guy on a 4-wheeler. It's 7 a.m, cruising around with a rifle on his shoulder, and blew that for me. So it's like, it just keeps getting better. And I'm like, all right, well, this isn't going to happen here. The other farm was a total dud. There was a lot of construction and stuff going on there. So I wasn't trying to go deal with that kind of crap. I'm like pretty much just scouting public and Can't come up with nothing. And I'm like, all right, I've got that 20-acre piece and I'm going to go back in there. Maybe that buck shows back up. Well, just as luck would have it, he shows up in there a couple of times. And so now I'm bouncing back between like the lease and this 20-acre piece. And I'm hunting, at the top of it's just basically the perfect layout. There's a abandoned kind of like what used to be a cattle pasture. And it basically goes straight uphill. The downhill side of it is a big bedding area all around it. Imagine like just looking at like a circle track, right? And then like inside of the circle is that old abandoned cattle pasture. So there's a little like cove up at the top. And that is what I've learned is like a lot of these deer. I watched a couple other bucks come from that bottom and they'll come straight up that field right to the edge of that. And that's where I've passed some really good deer in the past right there. And, it's just the perfect layout. And the thing I've realized is like those bucks like to come up and they just check that the upper edge of that bedding area. So I can access it in the morning through the woods, the wind's in my face and nothing gets messed with out in that field. Right. And you wouldn't think like deer are out there, what are they going to do in a abandoned cattle pasture? It's just like grasses and stuff. But dude, these deer are out there eating the grass like just like cows. Like they didn't,
Is there any brush growing up in there, like like berry bushes and thorns and that kind of shit?
There's a little bit of that, yeah. But the problem was like for some reason, the neighbor like came over there and brush hogged everything. So I was kind of like, well, that sucks. Like, why,
Yeah.
thanks for, and he's one of my friends. And I'm like, dude, like, what the hell, like
Friend, yeah.
like you couldn't have waited, oh, and he's the one that shot all these other deer too, by the way. So like, I'm happy for him, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You are killing me this year. Like
he was looking out for next year's prospects. He was looking
no
out
doubt.
for his next year's.
I think he just wanted me out of there, if you want me to be honest. So like, I spent a couple of days hunting that spot and I just had like a gut feeling. I'm like, man, all these mature bucks are out of here. I feel like something's going to come in here and, replace them. Like it's nothing but does. I mean, like one evening I saw like 18 or 19 does there. So you can tell like how dense this place is. So I set up there. I had like the buck that I actually killed, like was a good 8. I had him come up probably 2 or 3 mornings before that and check and hit that rope scrape that's up there. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll get lucky. Like I would totally kill that deer. And then another one showed up that one of my other friends actually wounded on opening day. And he was, I mean, a hammer, like probably a 150 class, like 9-point, like really nice buck, big brows, like dude. So my dad's in town. It's Thanksgiving. We're through rifle season ended. And I'm like looking forward to it. So I didn't hunt for a few days. My dad's in from town, out of town. So everything kind of got to like just lay low a little bit. And I told him, I'm like, dude, there's a huge cold front coming. And he's like, why don't you go hunt? I'm like, oh, I'm going to. I'm just kind of like, giving you a heads up. Like, I'm going to go hunt. So he's like, sweet. I was like, I don't care, man. I'm going to sleep in, whatever. Enjoy yourself. I would take my dad with me, but he's like getting up there in age and he can't really mobile hunt like I do. So I already had a really good tree picked out. I was like, all right, I know exactly where I'm going. It's perfect cover. Whole situation should be good. So I go in there and it was wild, man. Like I'm walking in and I have a cell cam that overlooks like this little drainage. And I'm walking in and I'm like, man, I'm just going to check this camera. Like it's 18 degrees in the morning, I know they eat around there a lot of times. I'm like, I don't want to walk in and like have something. I didn't check my camera all morning, right? Dude, he's in there. Literally, as I'm checking my phone, I'm getting like a cell cam picture of this deer. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, and then I'm like, what did I do? Did I do this wrong? And I'm like, I'm just going to wait. And I was like, I was early too. Like I wanted to get in there early for that reason. Because I was like, I bet you, like, I'm going to either catch them coming back to bed. That's kind of what I was figuring. I'd catch one, coming across that field to get in and bed over here on this side of the farm. Well, like all hope's lost for me. Like at that point, I'm just like, this is just another great, tragedy of the season. And I'm like, I'm going to wait till gray light and just slip down. And I knew like basically walking in, it was like 50-50 chance I'm going to either blow it or I'm going to kill one. Like, I was like, if I can make it to my tree and I don't get blown at, I'm going to kill. Like, and I felt super confident when we've had like nothing but warm temps and weird winds the whole season. And we finally got that like huge cold front like that. I was like, it's game on. And
Now, Justin, I don't know what you had your cell camera set on, but when you were getting those notifications, you saw that buck was down in that little drainage, and he's killing some time feeding before going to his bedding area. Did he look like he was the only one there, or was there more?
He was with
more than him.
Yeah. No, okay. He was definitely just locked down with the doe, man. And it's November 30th. So it's kind of like that latter period of the rut. It looked like he was with a really small doe and a big doe. So I was kind of like, okay, well, I guess they were just feeding. That's all it was. But my camera was set up near a scrape. So, but it just so like the way I face it, you can see down like this field and you can see the drainage. So I'm like, all right, well, you know, at least if they don't hit the scrape, I'll catch them transitioning back across, you know, on this one trail. And that's where they were at. So I'm like, well, shit, you know, so I walked down in, didn't see anything. And and it's just dead quiet. Like Derek, I'm talking like they definitely probably heard me walking in. I would imagine they kind of had to.
Well, and that cold, it's got to be crispy, crunchy leaves.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's so hard to be quiet.
Yeah, it was almost a little beneficial because the leaves were a little bit like, you know, frost covered. So it kind of dampened it just a little bit. I mean, I don't know. It was loud, but I couldn't believe I didn't get blown at. Like, I really couldn't. So it's like colder than, you know, cold because this is Kentucky weather. You know, it's pretty warm. And then it goes from, you know, high of 60 to, you know, 18 degrees, 15. And I'm like, man, this is just the morning. Like I just felt it in my bones, like it was going to go down. So I didn't see anything all morning. It gets to like 7 o'clock and I look down and here he comes like out of that bottom little drainage. And he's coming up and I'm like, oh, I already watched a buck do this 2 days ago. Like the same exact trail he's on. He's coming right up here, coming right to me. He's coming in and I got my camera. I had enough time to get my GoPro running. I slapped my phone on my bow and my painted arrow mount. I'm like, dude, this is too good to be true. And then all of a sudden, I look at my camera and I'm running a Sony A6400. Dude, this Sony camera hates the cold, like with a passion. And I was already kind of anticipating like issues. So I look at my camera and it's rolling, everything's good, but my battery has just got this caution like circle around it. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. So I'm like, well, that's when I like slap my phone on there. I'm like, I got to capture something. Right. So everything's rolling. Dude, he comes in and he's facing me like straight at me and he's at 20 yards. And I'm like, all right, like I just need him to turn. I got good cover. And then all of a sudden, like, like there's a doe back behind me and I don't even know what she's blowing at, dude. I really don't. I'm like, my wind is not blowing at her. Like she's up on top of this hill. My thermals are going up. Like, I'm like, what in the hell is going on? He completely like changed his whole demeanor, dude. He came in, he basically took like a couple bites of grass before he went into the woods. And that's where I was like hoping he was just going to like come in and J-hook right. I mean, it would have been a 10-yard shot. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm on like full freak out mode. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. He starts to like back up. He takes like one step back. And I was like, I just came to full draw, dude. And he opened up like, I was like, I could frontal shoot him right there. And I had a wide open shot. Well, he like stopped and I kind of like was just hoping he would just turn broadside. And man, that doe like turned it up a level. She like started going crazy and you could just tell he was about to peel out there and like just do a 180. And I was like, no, I sent it. And he ducked a little bit, man. It hit him right under his throat patch. I felt like an asshole, but it was a super vital hit. I mean, the whole arrow plunged into his chest cavity. So like my arrow, you know, went right where I put it, but it was just, with him being on edge like that, I wasn't sure, like, what do I aim right at his brisket? Like, what if I just smoke his brisket, you know?
Yeah.
So like all these thoughts were going through my head, and I'm like, man, like he ran away with my arrow in him. And I'm like, oh, like I totally like was just thinking it was terrible, right? I'm like, man, did I hit the shoulder? What did I, what happened? This, and that. All these scenarios are going through my head. But I just killed a deer. And I'm like,
yeah,
like it finally happened. Yeah, like, oh my God. I forgot what this feels like,
But
And,
even in that moment of like you planned it, right? And then like everything's going in your head, you're like, oh, 3 cameras, it's all going great. Like finally, all the freaking hard work, all this prep, all of the stuff is coming together. And there's still one last freaking wrench that don't blowing at you like crazy,
dude,
who almost ruins it all. Like there's
and
just
constant
adversity.
I'm telling you, I was so like, because like I'm like, did I do the right thing? Did I, like ethically, like was it the right thing to do? Like I'm like, I need to kill a deer. I'm sorry, like this was an ethical shot in my opinion. I don't really care what your opinions are, guys. Like the deer's dead, and he didn't have a hard, like he barrel rolled straight down the hill and he died right there. Like
so you saw
right
him go down
in the drainage. Yeah, he died right where he came out of.
That's
I
awesome,
didn't
man.
get to see him. I heard him crash.
Gotcha.
And but I was still like second guessing myself, like I could have went down there and looked on the ground. There was a red carpet blood trail. It was awesome. So instead of doing that, thanks, man. Like I think it was really just, the coolest part to me, Derek, was like, it was like God's timing. I felt like my dad was here from out of town. I got to share the whole recovery with my dad and my family. I went back home, and then we all loaded up. We got the side by side, and we went out there, and awesome blood trail. My dad helped me film some of it, so we got to do all the recovery together. And yeah, man, just super cool. The kids were all excited. We got to relax a little bit. Wasn't anything. It was a little gruesome. I'm not gonna lie. It was a
lot of blood.
There was a lot of blood on the ground. But it put a huge hole in his throat. I hit him with a G5 Mega Meat, and like it was my first kill with one of those, and I can't believe the freaking hole that it left in that deer. It was insane to me.
I've not shot those, but I've seen all the commercials and infomercials, and I got a couple of buddies who shoot them. And I got to say, every deer they've shot with them has been exactly like the commercials. Like it has been a hole this big, blood everywhere. So I'm glad it worked out for you.
Yeah. I mean, and just for all you guys listening, like, yeah, it was not optimal, but I mean, if we're all being honest with each other and you put in this much time and you practice with your equipment at a 20-yard shot, I think I would do that shot again. I mean, it's definitely not what we strive to do, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to put a deer down, and I don't know, man. Sometimes what's better? Do you let that opportunity slip, or do you take it? I mean, let you be the judge of that, but
Yeah, that whole story encompasses it really well. And I think there's a difference between guys who can make it happen in less than desirable circumstances and guys who are trying to force it to happen. I've been in that position where I've tried to force stuff because, the number of days you sat and the amount of time and effort, and like sometimes you just like, I have to, try to make it happen. And like I've tried to force shots before that like I wasn't confident in, and that has not worked out for me. But when you've practiced and you've put in your time and you've killed a number of deer and you really understand how, what's going on with their anatomy, their body, what they're probably going to do, I think a guy can really get away with knowing how to thread that needle. Like you just explained, like it's a less than desirable angle, but you knew what you had to do and you didn't know how he was going to move, but you knew if you put it here, even if he ducked, you're still going to be hitting something vital in there. And I think that's, I hate to say it, but that's one of the biggest things that turns like, guys who maybe don't get it done year in, year out, and guys who do, they know how to get it, like how to make that shot count when you get what you get. You don't always get them 10 yards broadside. So being able to not force it and like take a, something that you don't think can happen. Don't just shoot to shoot. But if you really think that, okay, if I slip it between the shoulder blade and this, or if you know what you're doing, that's I mean, that's really deadly. If you can take, 4 shots at deer instead of, passing those 4 shots, that might be $4 on your wall. And like, it
Right.
comes with time and it comes with experience. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying go out and shoot at every freaking deer that walks by, but knowing
Yeah.
what your capabilities are and knowing that deer is really going to open up a lot of opportunity for you. And you proved it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely not my most favorite moment as a bow hunter. I'll be honest with you, but I mean, it's one of those things, man. Like, death is not a beautiful thing, is it? I mean, like, we're not deer. And I mean, we're out there to deer hunt. And I feel like at the end of the day, our job as hunters is to put a deer down in an ethical manner. And like, I don't feel like that deer suffered, you know what I mean? And like, it was a very ethical shot. So like I said, I'm not proud of it. I just don't want to harp on that, but yeah, it's one of those things. And I feel like if you bow hunt long enough, you're going to end up having to take a frontal shot eventually. I've been doing this for 20 years and it's the first buck I've ever taken on a frontal shot. I don't even think I've taken a doe on a frontal shot, but it was the right place, right time, and right scenario. And like, I'd rather shoot a deer in the chest than shoot him in the ass. I refuse to take a shot in the ass. Like that's one thing I won't do, but
I'm not going to grill you either way here on what you did, but as far as frontal shots go, you were from a tree stand, I'm assuming.
yeah.
One
yeah,
thing that I've always been
elevated.
one thing I've always been kind of leery is like I tend to hunt pretty high. Like I'm going up higher than majority of guys just because I think it gives me a better advantage with scent and this and that. But like I don't know that I would take a real good frontal shot if I'm up as high as like I usually hunt. I feel like being
Yeah.
a little bit lower in the tree, like 2 steps
Yeah.
or 2 sticks, 3 sticks, I think is going to afford you a better opportunity for anybody who's listening. How high were you, Justin? Or like what position were you in the tree?
I would say I was like maybe 12 foot. It was just really, I really try to like put myself exactly where I want to be in the cover. And whether that's at 15, whether it's at 8, I mean, I've killed deer 6 feet off the ground. Like every scenario is different. I think that's like the more you get into mobile hunting, the more you realize like you got to hunt the cover, right? And I've really learned a lot, like living here in Kentucky, especially. We're very blessed to have so much diversity in the woods. Like we've got cedar trees everywhere. So this scenario, like I had a really good oak and I had a cedar right in front of it. So I got
Perfect.
right up to like the top chunk of it. And then I limbed all the other cedars and gave myself a nice little shooting lane. And man, it was bulletproof. I mean, honestly, like besides the does blowing at me, it was a great spot to be. You could totally draw and nothing could bust you. I mean, like I was very, very reserved all season. Like there were so many times I wanted to kill a doe, but in that spot, I knew I didn't want to booger that spot. And I think it's something that may have made my season, if I'm being honest with you, because I'm all for killing does. Like for all you guys listening, like I love killing deer in general, does, bucks, doesn't matter. But there's a time and place for everything. And I believe if you're trying to kill a big buck, I think you need to not kill does in that area. And if you have a really niche spot, especially if you're trying to kill one, that's going to be pursuing does in like those doe bedding areas, don't kill a doe there. Go kill a doe in a field edge or something like that out in the open in an area you're not worried about busting up, deer and dragging them out. But I do believe that's something that did help me on that hunt specifically.
That's absolutely a great tip because I mean, just the more scent you're leaving around an area, obviously other deer are picking up on it. That big buck could pick up on it. Those matriarch does, those does who have been around, they know what's going on when you get down, drag out a deer, leave a gut pile, and they'll probably start changing their routes. They're still going to use those areas, but they're probably going to, change a little bit of what they're doing, which could absolutely affect a later hunt on a buck. So
yeah,
it's good.
I've learned like it just puts the does on alert more, like especially those really old ones that are like generally where I hunt. Like if you kill a doe, there's usually a couple of them with them. Like it's very rare you have just one solo doe out there, but those other deer can make or break your hunt, man. I mean, especially if that buck's following a doe, he might not know anything about what you've done. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but if you're in that scenario and he's on a doe and that doe like has busted you or, knows about Sally getting shot last weekend, maybe maybe he's going to, follow her and not come up near you. And there's nothing you're going to do about that,
You're damn right. Shit, man. Well, hey, congrats and cheers on a good capstone on a struggling, you had
thanks,
a number
man.
of circumstances that worked against you. And I was rooting for you the whole time because I've had those seasons. We've all had those seasons. And sometimes you get dealt more than one of those seasons in a row. And that can be really tough too. But I'm glad you hung with it. And I think, like you said, killing on God's time, being able to do that with your dad and to take your family out and take the girls out, can't think of really a better way to go and get, pick up a deer. So congrats, buddy.
And I mean, the one thing I really want to touch on for all you guys is man, the amount of mental strain that I put on myself this year was totally uncalled for. But I feel like, if you really love this, I don't want to call it a sport, but if you do this long enough and you pour your heart and soul in it, you're going to have years every once in a while that just suck. And it might not be anything you're doing wrong. It might not be anything that is even in your control. It's just life sucks sometimes, right? Shit happens, but it really is just staying positive and staying after what you want, because you're not going to do it if you give up. And that's just really pretty much my mindset through the season, was just well, I'm just going to keep going, just one hunt closer, and it just, it'll come together for you if you don't give up. That's always. Can you agree with me on that, Derek? I mean, how many times have you it's just, you just got to keep hunting, man. Good things come to those that want it,
And even if Justin was lucky enough to be able to pull through, make good choices, put an arrow in a buck, recover it. But even if you don't, if you look at it in a way where hey, here's what I learned this season, even though I wasn't successful, you're always going to have another reason to get back in there and do it again next season. You just can't let it weigh yourself down, put too much pressure on yourself. You just got to use it and take that, positive mental attitude, that, growth mindset, take what you can, learn about it, and you're going to be a step ahead next season. Eric, I talked on the phone with Eric Clark about this the other day. He was at ATA, and I think he actually put out a reel on Instagram, but he was talking with some guys and they were saying, hunting is one of the few things in life that you can do everything right, have all the right stuff, all the right gear, put in the time, put in the thought, and still be absolutely unsuccessful.
Yeah.
You can't do that working out. If you go to the gym and you do all the workout, you're going to see results. But you can hunt all season, do everything right, and not get a freaking buck.
No, it is, man. It's wild. It really is wild how it happens. And I think that's the most important part about approaching your season and wanting to have fun, keep it fun, keep it relative, and don't get burned out. Cause I mean, I think that's one of the things that's really hard for people. For me, I've kind of set my life up around being able to hunt as much as I can, which is awesome. But I'm telling you, it's also a whole nother level to it, because when you hunt so much, you kind of you can really burn yourself out really quick. I mean, it's almost too much of a good thing is not a good thing. But I feel like I've had seasons where I had not near as much time, and I've killed way more deer and had way more success. But it's just something to be said. Sometimes you guys out there might be oh, I wish I could hunt all this time. It's careful what you wish for. Sometimes it's not such a good thing,
You got to remember to have fun, like you just said. You really do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes taking a day off to go kick up some wood ducks and shoot those. I mean, you got to have fun. That's the whole reason we're doing it. Yeah, it's nice to shoot a buck. It's great to shoot a big one. But you got to have fun. And if you're stressing yourself to the point where you don't want to freaking get out of bed and do it, you got to change something up.
Change it up.
Change something up.
Damn right. I agree with you.
All right, we've been on the horn for an hour. I just made you relive one of the more stressful seasons of your life. So thanks for doing that. I'm going to ask you one more question that's going to relive another stressful section of your life. I just started asking my guests at the end to share a one that got away story. Doesn't have to be a long one. And I'm going to give you two different options. I'll give you a moment to think. One that got away last week, Josh Beeman shared one that, a buck that he really hunted methodically and it just didn't line up. He had an opportunity. You can give me something that, just didn't pan out, or if you've ever just completely okayest hunter style botched something and made the stupidest decision ever and botched one, I'll take either of those. But if you've got a story that still stings about one that got away, I'd love to hear that from you.
Yeah, I got one that really like sticks out, and it was when I was a younger guy, first getting my my feet wet in the big whitetail world, I guess. So I was on a suburban hunt, and I knew there was a really big deer in the area, and I didn't see him. This was back before, I was running trail cameras and stuff like that. So just running around with the climber on my back and, being mobile. So I get into this spot and I look up. It's a really dead morning, like prime rut, like probably November 5th or 10th, whatever, in that time frame. And I look up and I see this absolute dream of a deer still to this day. Definitely a Boone and Crockett whitetail. Split twos, split threes, like, I mean, an absolute dream on both sides, like a freak. And, he comes in, I'm calm, comes in, gives me a shot at 10 yards. And I have a whole tree branch in front of me. And I remember being so young and stupid at this point that I thought I could just slip an arrow through the branches. So I'm at full draw, and he, like, instead of just waiting another 10 seconds for him to like clear the tree branch and just draw down, like, I'm like getting to the point where I'm like, okay, should I just shoot him? Yeah, I can shoot him. My little mouse in my brain's like, yeah.
You got it.
You got it. So I shoot right over his back, and he's locked down on a doe. Like, I mean, locked down hard, dude. Like, he ain't leaving her. So he and her like run off in the woods, and here he comes. He's just dogging her, circles her right back to me. All right, cool. I'm going to get another shot at this deer. Cool. All right. Well, so I wait, and like 20 minutes go by, and he gives me this shot, and he's standing there in the open, and I'm shooting between like the V of this tree. And I remember it clear as day, man. He's standing there, he's broadside, and everything's right. He's at 30 yards, and I shoot, and I clipped a freaking another tree branch that I didn't even see at all this time. Like, I thought it was a wide open gap. The arrow flings off, lands directly in front of his brisket. I mean, like, this thing's got like a bulletproof vest, I swear to God. So he runs off again. Dude, comes back. I get a third shot. This time, I don't have any more arrows. I got this is my third arrow. I only had 3 arrow quiver back then. Right.
That's like, the ugly Betty arrow, the one no one wants to pull out of the quiver.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm like, all right, dude, he's at 40, and I'm like, yeah, I got that. I got him at 40. Dude, I smoke him straight in the shoulder, dude. Like, pure, just, you could literally like hear the arrow crack him, and it just like bounced off his shoulder. And I'm like, sweet.
I'm gonna go home now.
So yeah. I'm young and dumb, and I'm like, I go home all excited, tell my dad about it, and he's like, what happened to your arrow? I'm like, well, it hit his shoulder, and it just like kind of like made this loud crack. And he's like, oh man. It's like, did you get your arrow? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it like was laying right there near him. And he was like, well, why didn't you go check it? And I'm like, well, I watched him. I didn't want to, I always hear my dad like, when in doubt, back out. Blah, 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 blah. So here I am trying to prove to my dad that I'm a big buck killer. And no, dude. And he's like, so where, we go in there, we're walking around. We walked around the whole day. All I had was like a tuft of hair and a couple of drops of blood. And yeah. But I'll tell you what, dude, I got my shit together that next year, and I started killing. And that buck there is the one that lit the flame in me. I don't know what I did to deserve that opportunity, but I feel like it was just unreal, man. Like, just a true monarch of a whitetail that somehow walked in front of this 18, 19-year-old kid, like, it was wild.
What an incredible encounter. And I mean, three shots on a buck that's going to teach you 3 times as much. Just out of curiosity, you said you got your shit together that next year, lit a fire under you. What did you kind of do? Did you just like end up like killing a bunch of does? Did you just practice more? What was kind of your thought?
I did indoor archery. I started shooting 5-spot target inside, and I had some really nice guys just really break me down, and I completely ditched the wrist strap. I started shooting a hinge, and I started shooting a thumb, and I never turned back. I've just always shot a thumb release ever since then. I don't even remember the last time I've shot a buck with a wrist strap, but they really taught me a lot about archery and all through the summer. And I've always had a knack, dude, for like just picking good trees. Like I feel really lucky, at a younger age. My dad gave me a little bit of like woodsmanship, and I just rolled with it. And it's just been it's been awesome, man. When I hunted suburban, I was in a really good area for a lot of really big deer, and I was always just really good at looking at a map and picking it apart and saying, all right, here's where I want to go. And that's
awesome.
Yeah. As the dropping pins, podcast goes on, it's like being good at dropping pins and scouting will take you a long way,
You got it, buddy. And I think
Yeah.
that tip, there's nothing better than shooting deer to get good at shooting deer. So like,
Yeah.
if you're in a state or a place that allows you to harvest antlerless deer and you're in an area that has a lot of them, go shoot a bunch. Like that's going to make you the best. But shooting in any sort of league, I don't care what it is, indoor, outdoor, 3D, paper targets, the more arrows you put through that bow before a season, it makes a world of difference. And I would have like never have like been one to say that until I actually shot a league and like, holy shit, did I get better? You know what I mean? And there's some pressure in a league. It's not just like you're shooting targets. When you're on a line with a bunch of other people and you're shooting against other teams, they're all a little bit different. But like there's a competitive
There is.
There's some
you get
pressure
a little bit
there.
of
And that's going to help you. It's going to help
does.
you.
And I mean, well, the coolest thing about doing that, man, once you dive into that realm is number one, the amount of really quality people you meet. I just had a podcast with Josh Trowlinger. Love that dude to death. He's also a podcast host for the Bow Hunting League. And we had a really good talk about that, man.
Oh, yeah. Josh,
we had a really good talk about just the amount of quality people and really life lessons. If you're stressed, I mean, if you're going through depression, whatever you're going through, man, like archery is such a good healer to get your focus right. And, almost like a form of martial arts, in my opinion. And you just meet some really good people that are willing to give you, the shirts off their back to help you. So whatever flaws you have, as long as you're open-minded, you will most definitely walk away and you'll be a way better. You want to be a better hunter. That's a huge thing, but you also need to be a good archer too. If you want to be a good bow hunter, archer, you need to really step up your archery game because it's only going to help you.
Yeah, and I'll say this last bit with a little, double-edged sword action. But if you've got a spouse or a significant other that maybe doesn't love that you're away all the time, like shooting archery doesn't mean you have to bow hunt. Like I've met a lot of people since COVID in the last 5 years who have picked up archery and not bow hunt, but they just like to shoot a bow because it is, like you said, like it takes your mind to a place where you're not focused on anything else. It just kind of is therapeutic. So feel free to get a bow in your significant other's hand, unless your significant other is like mine and shoots better than you and makes you feel like shit about your shot.
Yeah.
But you can always take that with a grain of salt. Also, my wife is a bit of a dead eye with anything. So
yeah, hey, guilty, man. My wife, I bitch at her all season because she wants to go bow hunting, and I'm like, oh, well, why don't you shoot your bow? She takes it out, doesn't shoot for a year and a half, 2 years, like pinwheeling them at 20, and I'm like, she's like, see, I'm good, like, yeah, I got you. Till a deer comes out, and she's like,
exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, my wife will never kill anything. She just doesn't have that bone in her body. But she did the same thing. We took our bows out like after archery season, and we were just. She's like, "Oh, I want to shoot mine." I was like, "Okay." First shot, like 20 yards, puts it in like the freaking quarter. I was like, "Shut up! Go put it back in the case. Shut up!
Yeah,
you're crazy."
That's wild.
Yeah.
No, and it is fun, man. I think it's something great. If you got kids, like I notice now, like whenever I shoot my bow, my kids and my wife are all like, "Oh, well, maybe not my wife as much, but my kids really want to shoot too." So I think it's a great way to just have a great family sport, that you all can have fun and relax. And yeah, it's always such a good thing, man. So get into archery. Yeah. It's a good thing.
Well, hey, you got it. You got it, man. Hey, Justin, congrats on a great season.
Thanks,
I know
buddy.
you went through the struggles. You made it happen when it counted, and I appreciate you reliving the whole thing, telling us the story. Hopefully, hopefully, folks listening have picked up more than a handful of things here because you hit on a ton of different stuff. So appreciate you jumping on with me tonight.
Yes,
It's always good to catch up. So I'll be excited to watch and listen and hear from you how your new move for your family goes. Justin's moving to the land of plenty, the land of giants, Iowa soon. So
yes, sir.
we're super excited to see how that goes for you, and keep us posted on how your shed hunting season goes this year,
I
buddy.
sure will, man. It's been a pleasure, Derek. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course, brother. Well, you have a good night, and thanks everybody for listening. You guys have a good one.